Oh, what the heck? All right, we're back. We are MAPD714. That's Mobile Application Development here at Centennial in the fall 2017 semester. And we're week 4. I can't believe it's been a month. Part 1 of our broadcast, we're talking about working with device rotations today. So how do we rotate the device so we can make it in different orientations? People still missing? Everyone signed in? All right. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. I'm working with this PowerPoint that I've got up on eCentennial today, right? So it's all around device rotations. What is this all about? It's about portrait and landscape, doing that kind of stuff, right? And one of your bonus questions on your assignment was, hey, make it work with different orientations. That was for 4 marks. Not worth it, I'll tell you right now. It's really hard to make it work with different orientations. Constraints is one of the things that makes developing on iOS difficult. Even the author, if you read the book that she says, she goes, I walk away sometimes from doing orientations and I come back, right, and I try again. The what? It doesn't work at all. Yeah, well, we'll talk about, yeah. We're going to do that today. We're doing it today. We're going to try it out and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll figure it out, right? So vary for traits. And we'll talk about that because sometimes, remember I talked about this too, right? Remember the book was written in December of 2016, right? Because that was at the end of the cycle. That was just, remember, iOS 10 had come out last year in September, right? So now iOS 11 is here, and as we're going towards December, I tell you right now, there's a bunch of books that are coming out that I'm probably going to use one for next year, next semester for 2018, right? But they're just coming out, and that's not including any changes, patches, adjustments. Patch iOS 11's got, you know, patch 0.01 already, right? So, you know, that's the way Apple rolls. It continues to change. So some things are not going to work, and we're going to have to figure that out together. All right, so so part of what we're doing is this. So what we want to do is make it so that our devices can be, our layouts, our user interfaces can work across different orientations, number one. So orientation changes, and also devices. That's a different scenario. So there's two user stories here. Okay, when I talk user stories, and again, I spoke to you guys about agile project management a little bit just in my little intro. If you guys want to look to try and figure out what agile project management is all about, you know, it talks about this idea. I'm just looking at agile project management for dummies here. Kudos to those people who put this online. But really what it talks about is this idea of iteration. And this is really a nice picture, actually. So you have a vision. I don't know if you guys can see this. Hopefully you can. You have a roadmap, right? A product roadmap. You do some release planning. You do some sprint planning, which is a sprint's like the actual iteration itself. After you've done your sprint, you go into your sprint. It usually takes 2 to 4 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks to develop something, and this is in real life, right? And then once you've got your sprint done, you take a look and you do a retrospective. How did it go? Right? Did it go okay? You know, how did it go, right? This is afterwards. But first we do our sprint planning. We do our sprint. We're into our something called the daily scrum. And the daily scrum is where you get together with your team for 15 minutes. It's a stand-up meeting. You talk to each other and you say, so how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Is our sprint on track? Is it off track? You know, we have to make an adjustments. And then we do afterwards, after the sprint is done, we do a sprint review. How did it go? Work? You know, that's what a sprint review is all about. If it worked and whatever we plan to do is working, then our sprint was successful. Okay, if it's sprint successful, then you go on to the next phase. You just do all this again, right? And of course, you have something called the sprint retrospective, which is like a post-mortem for people who've done any kind of things before, where you look back and say, what worked, what didn't work, how do we estimate things? Because human beings are terrible at estimation. How did it work? Did we estimate it right? All this kind of stuff. And then finally, we do that over and over again until we get to a product release. And there's different releases. We can have our first runnable, something that's just minimum viable product, and then there might be other releases until the final release, right? So that's really sprint in a nutshell, or agile in a nutshell, I would say. So, you know, the stuff that we were talking about is this iteration, this idea of I got to try and put my user interface across different devices. It's got to work across different user interfaces. And the user story for, when I say user story, that's an actual article or something we talk about when we talk about Agile. When we envision things, we talk about user stories. Maybe the UI UX guy talked to you about this, almost like personas. Like as a user, I should be able to press my buttons on my calculator, you know, basic numbers, floating point and integer numbers. And then you can go into more details you say, whatever when you write that little statement, it gives you an idea of what your app should do. And you can keep going. You can add more user stories. Like as a user, I should continuously be able to do calculations until I press the equal sign, right? That might be a user story. As a user, I should be able to turn my calculator to the side. There's a new user story. From a basic calculator to a scientific calculator, right? With more buttons than it shows on the basic calculator. How do you do that, right? And so we're going to learn some of that today, hopefully, without problems with the whole varying thing that we're talking about. Hopefully that'll work for us and it won't kill us. And if it does, fantastic. We'll figure that out too, right? But that's what we talk about when we say user stories, right? So a different scenario, a different user scenario. All right, so I don't need this. Let's go back to this for a second. So this is a scenario. So this is the regular scenario, something that we normally see. And some applications will work like this. And this is an example of just Safari, how it works. When you turn it to the side, the application still runs in this mode. One of the things that Apple talks about is it doesn't have to work in every orientation. Like most iPhone apps, Apple discourages the use of an iPhone app upside down because if you're on an iPhone and you're using the app upside down and if someone calls you, then you got to do this. You got to flip it right side up again. And it's not the correct user experience, right? So they say try not to make an app work upside down unless you're making something like a game, something that you don't care about. You're playing a game on the side anyway, and if it's upside down, if you have to turn it upside down for a reason, that's fine, but it discourages that. But however, in iPad, it's not that case at all. iPads are meant to be used in all orientations. So when you make an iPad app, we haven't even talked about that yet. That's a totally different thing that we're talking about here. When you make an iPad app, then you have to think about it should work in every orientation and look good in every orientation. That's the other thing. So that's part of what we're doing in this semester. This semester is trying to make the basic things work so that you have an understanding of how to put some basic user interfaces together that works across any device or most devices, let's say, including the iPad. Okay, so we're talking about the mechanics of rotation. So there's different kinds of, ways it works. And part of what happens is it works with this idea of auto rotation, where if I change things over and if I've clicked things in my Xcode to allow auto rotation, it'll switch to landscape or portrait for me. I don't have to program that. There's nothing for me to do. You got to think about it. Imagine if when it switched rotations, I had to code it to do something. That's the case in the web, by the way. If I change our orientations, I have to program my website to be responsive or adaptive to different viewport sizes. I don't really have to do that with iOS. iOS, as soon as I switch rotations, it will do something, right? It'll automatically do something. So that's the idea of auto rotation. Correctly, that's something else. But it will actually rotate the view, right? Whereas on the web, it may totally whack out. It may not work at all, right? You might not see anything, or you might see it's really, really small if you don't program it properly. Everything on the web is something you need to program with. Unless, of course, you use Bootstrap, which is just, fixes a lot of stuff for you. That's what it does. That's what it's really all about. The idea that we want to make the window resize to fit. That's what we want to try and do with our devices and with our applications. And part of it is understanding how to use proper constraints what the idea of why we use constraints in iOS, and well, we don't need them in other platforms like Android. Android doesn't need it. It uses something else. It uses a different methodology for doing stuff. It uses layouts. That's the one thing. If you notice, there's no flow layout like there is in Android, or some kind of auto layout kind of thing. We do have auto layout, but it's not really auto layout. It's something else in iOS, right? Whereas in Android, it's almost like an extra container. You put a container, which is your layout, maybe it's vertical or horizontal, and you can adjust things automatically, almost like magic, right? Let's just call it automagically, right? Around, right? That's what happens. And same thing with Windows. If you look at the Windows platform, you'll see that that's what happens too. You make a Windows Forms application or use Xamarin Forms, and somehow it's a little easier for you to do that there than in iOS, even though iOS should be the most user-friendly. So one of the other things that we talked about is the idea that we're moving from points away from pixels. We're not talking pixels, even though there are pixels on the screen, picture elements. That's what pixels are. They're pixels, but we're not talking about pixels. We're talking about points, both in iOS and in Android, because of this idea of high definition display. iOS calls it Retina Display. The new version, which is really interesting, on iPhone X, iPhone 10, it has something else, an OLED display, which is very interesting and hot. I'm curious about it. Not curious enough to spend $1,300, right? But I'm curious. I wanted to get my hands on one. Hopefully, I can get my hands on a tester, right? But it's interesting the way it works, and they're getting so the higher resolution makes it more challenging for us to put images and adjust our layouts, because if we did pixels layout, an absolute layout wouldn't work because our pixel sizes, our screen sizes keep changing. So using absolute layout is a mistake. Like, for example, if I knew that my screen was 3,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels in some weird aspect, right? And if I use that and it was per pixel, I wanted to make a pixel perfect user interface. But what about the other screens? What happens to them? What happens to iPhone 4s or iPhone? My app doesn't work with iPhone 4. My app doesn't work with iPhone 5 or 6. It only works on 10, right? That doesn't make any sense. That means you're limiting your audience, and Apple won't even approve that kind of thing, right? Interface guidelines or human interface guidelines, makes you kind of make it so that your app will work across multiple devices. And most of the times, if it doesn't, they will not approve it. They'll say, sorry, it's broken. It doesn't work on different devices. So too bad. You can't put this on the App Store. Games are different. I have to say games are different. It's not like that for games, because games, sometimes you have to use pixel perfect creation of stuff and then translate it with code to make it work properly on any device. So how do we handle rotation? We're going to use constraints like we talked about last time, right? We're going to use interface builder like before. We can also use constraints. We can also build constraints with code. We're not going to do that in this course, right? We might do it in course number 2, right? Which is next year. Only because when we do programmatic views, like for example, right now we're doing drag and drop, right? Next semester, what I'm hoping to do with you, and depending on how this goes, we might do it this semester a bit as well, is, hey, what about if I have an empty layout and I use code to build my layout? Like exactly where things are going to go, just with code, no drag and drop. How does that work? With constraints. Constraints, they don't cover that in this book, how to do it with code, but we might be covering it next semester. Single view application again for this one, and the one that they suggest in the book is going to use portrait. It's going to be a universal application that we're going to build, right? With portrait, landscape left, and landscape right, no upside down, right? That's what I want you to pull up. So pull up your Xcodes, please. Let's do this part together, right? And we're going to call this application, the first one is, we're going to call it orientations. Okay, that's the first part that we're going to cover today. So several parts. This PowerPoint, by the way, is 80 slides long. Most of it pictures. Don't worry, all right? It's not because I want you guys to go into it. And part of it, the next part, the half that you're going to do on your own, is following a series of steps to make it work properly. So when I pull up Xcode, right? Again, try your hardest not to update your machine like this. See this? Something happened. I didn't do anything, right? But it's asking me to do this, and this is a very bad sign, my friends, right? I have, by the way, I didn't download Xcode and change anything. I didn't install iOS, you know, the next version of Mac OS Sierra, High Sierra. I didn't do anything like that. Let's agree. These are bad signs, my friends. Bad signs, right? When it's installing components, you know what it means, right? It means that somehow, somewhere, Xcode has updated in the background, right? Right? Especially when you put things to do like this. And this is not my plan, so I apologize. Look, I'll prove it to you. It's not. I'm still using. I'm still using Mac OS Sierra. It's not High Sierra, right? So we're good to go. Let's see what this Xcode version has done for me. Hopefully, it did not break what I'm going to do today. That would be very, very bad. That's unexpected, actually. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to pull up Xcode. We're still going to do a single view application. Version 9, of course. Wasn't my intention, guys. I swear. I haven't updated my machine. All right, and if I go to create new Xcode project. Yeah, I know I could. I didn't do it though. Here's my single view app. Wow, there's some there. I can automatically tell there's some new stuff like this, right? That wasn't part of Xcode 8, right? As soon as I saw that, I would have known, right? Once you see augmented reality app, I'm doing that with you guys next semester. I'll be honest with you. I want to do some of this stuff. One of my interests for my master's program is to do augmented reality games, right? Because I think a lot of stuff is going to be augmented reality. I can picture a world like the Matrix where, you know, I know Kung Fu because I have a phone and I can, you know. Anyways, it tells me what to do. You know, but so I'm not going to build that up, but I'm definitely going to do this one today. So let's go back to this. Hopefully that'll be good. Next. And let's call this orientations, just like it asked us to, right? I'm not going to build in a team. Remember what happened last time when we deployed on actual devices last week? That was interesting. I'm going to use Swift, right? Here's my language. I'm not going to choose any of these again, right? Which is good. And I'm going to click next. So some of this is a little different. I'll be honest with you. Right away, we're in kind of a different mode than it used to be because it used to ask you for an iPhone, right? Or whatever. Guess what? It's not asking for that anymore in iOS, in Xcode 9. That's bad. So that guaranteed my lesson today is going to go out the window a little bit because I didn't expect this at all. It wasn't my intention. That's really bad, actually. So, but we'll deal with it. Notice that it's targeting iOS 11, right? Let's not. Let's just target iOS 10.3 just to make it sense. Universal is what we want from a device's perspective. So we're not doing an iPhone specific or iPad device. We're not targeting that. So that's kind of similar. We're going to leave it as portrait, landscape left, and landscape right, right, with the default styles bar, right? Okay, we're going to do all this the same. I'm just curious. I know it changes other things too. Like it changes the simulator. That's going to be interesting. That's the first change it's going to make. So let's just, you know, drag and drop some stuff. I know in the PowerPoint presentation, what it's going to tell you to do is it's going to tell you to choose universal and all that kind of stuff. And it's also, notice that you can also change your settings. So in universal, it does this, but you might say, you know what, for iPad, and notice that it's everything. So you can actually change the devices that this particular app works on, iPad. Notice that it says device orientation for iPad is all. And if I say iPhone, I could say, you know what, for iPhones, maybe I don't want the other ones, and I could choose that as well. As universal, that's what we're going to leave it as. And then in the next slide, that's slide 13, all I want to put is this thing that says this way up, right? This little label. So we're going to drag and drop something from the, we're going to go back to main storyboard here, right? And we're going to get a label. And look, my friends, look, this makes me mad, right? iPhone 8. Yeah. Can I? Let's see. Can I? And by the oh, that one died today, and that one's okay. That's fluid. Yeah, there's a bunch of different devices here, right? We can choose iPhone X. There it is. This is, look at this one, right? iPhone X. That's the 8 Plus. We're going to stick to, obviously, we're going to have to stick to the iPhone 8. We have no choice about that. So please, if you're using the latest version of Xcode like I am, unexpectedly, just leave it at iPhone 8. Okay, and it should be the same. We're going to drag and drop this label over into our screen here. And I can already tell that there's some other issues, some things that have changed. Automatically, I can tell how Xcode looks now. 8, right? You'll see the differences in a bit. Not very different, but enough that I can tell that there's some weird issues. This is definitely weird, right? Okay, and I'm hoping this is not going to change either. So my label should say, it should say this way up. So we're going to change this to this way up just to show this is a test. So this little application is not something I'm going to share with you up on GitHub because it's not really the new one. And this is the way up, right? Okay, we're not changing the size of this thing, right? Okay, so we're just making it put in the middle. And basically we want to use auto layout constraints. Now, this is a busy slide, but we want to use auto layout constraints to pin the label in the exact as control drag from the label upward until the background of the containing view turns blue, and then release the mouse. So let's try that out. So we're going to control drag from here until this part, until the background turns blue, right? And then what it says is choose, after you do this, it says hold down the shift key and select both the vertical space to top layout guide and center horizontal in container. So let's try that again. So I'm going to kind of control drag. And if I press the oh man, that's the challenge, isn't it? Right? See how those went away? I love iOS. I love iOS. All right, let's just going to do this again. So notice that what I'm supposed to do is I want to do, notice it worked this time. Vertical spacing to top layout guide, that didn't pop up, and center horizontally in container. Let's try one of those. Let's try again. So control drag, right? I'm pressing control. I'm holding control drag down and press shift. I'm supposed to see something in here. I don't. Let's try that again. Sometimes clicking away and clicking back is really important to do too. Right? There we go. So center vertically in safe area. This is new. And center horizontally in safe area. Not container anymore. So I want to do this, and I want to click this. I'm just holding the shift key to do that. Okay? So yours would say in container. Mine says safe area, right? Because I'm using the latest version of the program. Now I'm going to say add constraints. And what this does is it gives me a couple of a blue line, which is something similar to what you should see on this blue line here, as well as this orange line. What does the orange line mean, peoples? Something's not right. That's what it means, right? So that's what it says. It says vertical spacing to top layout guide now becomes vertical spacing to safe area, and center horizontally in container is actually center horizontally in safe area. That's what happens. We press thing, we ran it, the rotating device a few times, it won't work. Yes. Did I do something wrong? That's it. And you're on the latest version? Yeah. Right. It's horizontal in container. So the way I did that was I control dragged. That's what I did. Control drag. And then what you want to do is you want to press shift to select two of these and then add the constraints, or press enter to add the constraints. Now I didn't have to do that. It's not leading space because it says
I have only two options: vertical spacing to top layout guide, and center vertical in container.
That's what I have.
vertical spacing. Okay. I'm going to come around to you and help you out in a second. Now, I got a problem, and if I look at this, the problem, the issues navigator says frame for this way up will be different at runtime. Position will be 140 and 333 at runtime, but is 133 and 30 in the canvas. Width will be this. How do I fix this problem? So I go to edit, Right? This is one way to do it. Resolve auto update issues. And if I click update frames, right now I'm good. But the problem is my little thing goes way down here. And that's not what I wanted me to undo that. Change. Here it is. So the other thing I can do is I'm going to click this little pin icon down here. So this is little ping, which is resolve auto update issues, issues. And for this particular view or all views, we'll just say reset to suggested constraints, which does exactly what we need to do, which is this. Okay, now, let's try it. Let me try running this in a device. Notice that I'm targeting iPad Pro 10.5 inch. You may not have that option. I'm going to go down to where it says iPhone 8. I want to target an iPhone 8. That means a new simulator. That means this might not even work, right? Because I haven't downloaded any new simulators. So this might take time, guys. I may have to stop the video and cry a little bit, but let's try it out, right? Building orientations. This is interesting. This is new. Compiling Swift. That's a little faster, actually. And compiling asset catalogs, and yay, build succeeded. What do we got here? Oh yeah, it's nice and fast. See how it's like zipping around like that because I'm displaying. I'm trying to. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's doing its fancy business now. Let's see if I can do something while it's doing that. Yeah, we want to scale this puppy way down, like 50%. That's better. That's a little easier on my machine. Yeah, it's iPhone 8, and it's got a nice little shape to it. It's pretty sexy, right? And yeah, we're doing stuff on the fly here tonight. Woohoo! One thing to note, though, with all seriousness, is that there is something down here where it says iPhone 8. Notice this little thing down here. We're going to talk about this. This is part of your lab today, where we have width and height. There's a width and height down there, and there's something that says C, and there's something that says R. Okay? So width is C and height is R. That width is compressed. So a compressed width, not compacted width. And height is the regular size, right? Because my phone on iPhone 8, it's still loading 8 for us, right? My phone is actually got the right height, but the width for the phone is too short, like compared to an iPad. Remember, we're making a universal app, right? So those codes down there on the bottom where it says WC and HR down here, that is a width and height, configuration. Okay, did I have success? Where's my label? God darn it, right? Huh? Still working on it. Look, I'm really chugging, right, to do this. So I'm gonna leave this thing for a second and see if it's really chugging. Slow. And remember, I want you to take this into, there it is. I want you to take it into this account, okay? I have an i7 with 16 gigs of RAM and a terabyte SSD. Talking about a slow system to handle this. That's why if you're running a VM and you're trying to update to the latest version of Xcode 9, good luck to you, right? If this chugs and what I'm doing, it's going to definitely chug for you. So, okay, this worked. Now, how do I do this? I want to change orientations, and there's a hotkey for this, right? If I press Command and to the right, it actually does this orientation change, or Command and arrow left, it actually changed the orientation right away. So try that out. So try doing Command and left or right. Notice that we're not quite perfect, right? We still see the label. I can't go upside down. It won't allow me to go upside down, right? Because look, the upside down mode, even though it shows me, nothing happens. It doesn't change when it's upside down. This is correct. My iPhone is upside down, but the way up didn't change over here because I'm not responding to that orientation. I don't care about that orientation. I'll do this one, but if I go upside down, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't respond past the last one I did. Okay, so I'm changing that by pressing Command and left arrow or right arrow. I'm just going around for a second. I'll be right back to make sure that everyone has their paperwork. Normally your next meeting is today, what happened? Too far away. Okay. All right. So this is the thing we wanted to try and do. We wanted to make this application work in all orientations, right? And that's what this says. It tells you in the PowerPoint what to do. If you can't remember arrow left or arrow right somehow, it's there, right? So it's okay, but let's try this on the iPad simulator now and see what happens. On the iPhone, it kind of worked in one orientation. It didn't work in the other orientations, right? But let's see what happens on the iPad simulator. God help me, right? What's going to happen now, right? I feel bad, but I'll stop this and I'll target the iPad. So I'm just going to go up here where it says iPhone 8. And I'm going to target the iPad that I have, if it has it here. Let's see if we have a 9.7. Here's my iPad Pro 9.7 inch, right? I'm targeting that one. Now, you may not have that, or you may have it. I don't know. But target an iPad for yourself, okay? And let's see what happens with the iPad. So I'm going to kind of press this one, and then let's see how long it's going to take for this to launch. Got this little simulator going up here. Oh, boy. Oh my God. I'm suffering. I don't know what I'm going to do. There it is. It actually worked. So there's your iPad. I got two simulators going. Chug it along and take it, right? Hey, look, it still shows 60% memory use, right? If I do that, there's a little free app that I downloaded for this. If I can actually click on it. No, that's battery percentage. Where the hell is it? It's not showing up. Oh, here it is. Woohoo! 80% memory use. Yeah, that's more like it. So there's a free memory guide thing that comes up that you can use. It's called, I believe it's called System Optimizer, or because I can't do it right now, it's too slow. But notice I'm not doing anything. All I've got going on, actually, there's a bunch of things that I'm doing at the same time. That's why it's taking so long. I've got Xcode going. I'm recording a video. I'm broadcasting up on YouTube, right? But this is what's happening. This is more fair. I've got a couple of documents open down here. Let's see if I can close some of this down. I got Discord going, right? I got some other applications I can probably quit out of. I don't know why I have Excel up, but let's kill that too. And my PDF. Let's see if it's going to free up any memory. It probably won't do any of it because nothing's open. But you can see how I'm really chugging along now. And I'm guessing that my voice is also going to be cut up too, my guess, right? Because it's trying to do the best it can. Of course, quit that. I don't need that. Hopefully, it'll serve up some nice memory over here. But and just to make it a little bit more fair, I will close down the simulator. Is that the iPhone simulator? I can't tell. Really slow. Yeah, it's different. It's really different. All right, it's working. let's see if I click on the right. I just don't want to kill this simulator with the other one. And let's just see which one that is, if it has a window difference between one and the other. Yep. Don't worry, I know. Let's see what happens. That might help. Still okay. Well, my memory is telling me it's 80%, and that's not a good sign. That means that I'm really chugging along, and I don't have a lot going on. I mean, it's nothing more than I did last week, right? Hopefully when Mac OS High Sierra gets installed, it's going to be faster. Sorry, did I laugh? Well, I'm not saying that for any bad reason, but, you know, it's just, we can only hope. Okay, so this is going to do its job. You can see that it's really chugging along to do this iPad thing. Yeah, what we're expecting to see is that the iPad is not going to show my thing centered, right? So what can I do to center my label? What do you think I can do? I mean, I can put more constraints, right? That's what I can think about trying to do. And what I can do is I can say that, sure, I want to center this thing, and I wasn't quite successful at centering it, but I want to center this thing so that it is between like halfway, the halfway point. This just tells me that there's a guide, a layout guide from the label to the edge of my screen, but that doesn't mean that it's in the middle, right? I have to program that. I'm almost thinking about stopping this right now because I'm just dying, right? But let's just go back to this. Let's see if I can do this. So we're just going to stop this little puppy right now because it's just taking way too long. It's like launching orientations. Take a look. Launching orientations. We're going to stop. And we're going to be a little bit more strategic. Okay, so let's take a look and see that the constraints that we have. So if I click on down here where it shows my, wow, even when it's done, it's not done. Oh, there we go. Smart memory optimization. Dr. Cleaner, that's what it's called. Dr. Cleaner's turned down all kinds of memory when I stopped doing it. Hopefully we'll be able to run a little bit more efficiently in a second. One thing I definitely want to do is I want to just kill my simulator for a second, just so that way I have more. It's still pumping around. I want to quit it so that way there's no. We're definitely not going to use that again. Memory and speed up my machine just a little bit because that was just too much. Okay. Whew, okay. I'm a little better now. Still chugging along. But yeah, so if I look here, if I click on my label, and if I go down to this little button here where the pin is, you can see that I've got actual numbers in here where it says, well, I've got 10 from the top and 133 from the left side and the right side. But this 133, it works great, right, for my current view. But I don't know what I want it to work for all views. So this doesn't make any sense, right? So let's take a look at my constraints, what I have here. The constraints actually tell you what they are, right? If you actually read the constraints, it says dot center x is equal to the center. That's what it says. And the way up leading, safe area is leading at 133. That's this part right here. Notice the orientation of this one. And the way up top is 10. That's what so there's an actual constraint up here as well. There's a bunch of different ones, right? So let's get rid of these constraints. I'm just going to clear my constraints. A bunch of ways to do that. You can do it manually by kind of selecting your constraints and pressing delete. That kills my constraints. And then I want to add manual constraints of my own. So let's try a couple things here. So not what my PowerPoint says. So if I kind of drag this line to the left, right? So here's my view. And notice it says leading space to safe area or center horizontally in space area. If I do this one, center horizontally, which is what I wanted to do, right? It's going to give me this line that goes up here. Okay, now I have one problem. Notice that it turns red. I'm red here and says the vertical position is ambiguous for this way is up, the vertical position. Okay, so let me see if I can do this one. I can take control drag and control my way up here. And it says top space to safe area. Let's see if I can do that. So then I added a top space, whatever that is. If I change the position of this label, like somewhere over here, you can see that that's what it was, that little orange area here. And that's the top space to safe area. Okay, so if I go back here where it says top space to safe area, for you, it'll say, it'll say to the upper, what should we call it, the top, the border, something totally different. Let me just get rid of this. So I'm gonna get rid of this again. And let's go back here. And you can see that all I have is this. I want to add another one. And by the way, this has to change too, because now I've moved my my label down. So let's just kill this one too. And let's try it again. So I want to kind of drag and drop, control drag all the way up to the top this time around. Top space to safe area. So I got this part here. That's what this does, right? And then I want to kind of do, if I kind of go to the left, like this, control drag to the left or to the right, it should say center horizontally. I want to click that one, right? Center horizontally. And now, somehow, when I did that, I don't have an issue anymore, right? Now, I didn't do the auto layout constraint stuff. I went manually for this one, just to show you that you can do that too, right? God. Let's change this. Let's point to iPhone 8 again, because we had that going. And let's try it again. And then I want to take a break. Not because I need to take a break. Well, maybe I do need it. But anyways, I want to see what this does. We should be okay for the first time around. It takes a little bit of time, but after the simulator does take up quite a bit of memory, I can tell you right now, compared to normal. I'm wondering if you can optimize that, because it has a nice little shape, makes it look like a real iPhone, but I don't need that. I just need a basic, rectangle like it was before. That was faster, right? My machine is just chugging. Let's see what it's doing. It should be launching the simulator at this point. There it is. Because I've already done this thing. It's already been set up. So you should see this app come up in a few minutes. My memory usage is down. Looks like I got 52% memory usage, which is a good thing. And that was much quicker than the iPad. iPad didn't even go up. Right? So, wait, yay, we saw it in the middle this time. Oh, fantastic. That means if I press Command to the left, I should see it in the middle as well. Look, it went to the middle. And if I went to the right, work in the middle as well, right? Because of that change. If you don't see it in the middle, if it's off to the side somewhere, then you did something different than me. Okay? Now, that's nice, but we only have one label. You know how you ran into the problems when you did your calculator? There's many buttons. That, right? Once you start adding more buttons and a different layout, this becomes a challenge. And like we saw in the PowerPoint, like it said, yeah, I can't test it right now because of my situation. But if you actually try it on the iPad, you'll see that something's wrong. That something won't work properly on the iPad 100%. So let's go to the next part. Part of the things we also can do is in our, we can set up rotation support from a controller perspective, right? So our view controller.swift, right? Inside there, we can put a little bit of code. There's an override we can put in called supported interface orientations, right? Where we can specify, I'm not going to do that here, we can specify our orientation. So user interface orientation mask.portrait. And in this particular case, landscape, and they've got the pipe. There's a pipe symbol here. That pipe means or, right? For people who don't know that. So either one or the other. And there's another sets of values you can put in. You can say portrait, landscape left, landscape right, upside down. You can program this in your orientation, and you can disable it as well, right? And there are some orientation changes here that are preset. For example, user interface orientation mask landscape by itself, right? Not landscape left or landscape right, but any landscape, as well as all That's good for iPad, right? Or all buttons side down, right? All buttons side down, which is some common orientation changes as well. So you can do that. We're not going to do that here. We're going to leave that alone, but I want to show you that. All right, so this is the next app that we're going to build. Yay, we made it to the next app, right? This one here is going to be all around constraints. What we did was easy because that first one, it didn't work on iPad. I can launch iPad, but it probably wouldn't have worked anyway. But this one's going to be more challenging. So you're going to take 4 labels. Let's see if you guys can do this one, right? And I want you to put UL for upper left, UR for upper right, LL for lower left, and LR for lower right. Try them out and see if you can make them work in different orientations. We're not talking about different devices right now, just different orientations. Let's go, try it out. And I'm going to try the same thing while you guys are doing. So I'm going to stop my little file. I'm going to keep my original thing here. I'm going to make a new app, right? So I'm going to kind of new project. All right. Another single view application. There we go. I'm going to call this thing like it says in the book, right? I'm going to use this thing, right? And we're going to make a new project. Did they give me a name for the project? Sure, layout. There it is. Let's try this out. Layout. I thought I put it in there. Layout. Again, it's going to be with Swift. We're still targeting this stuff. We're going to go next. And we're going to save it. Hopefully it doesn't keep the other one open at the same time. Let's see if I pull this over. It does. It does. It does, my friends. So we have to close the other one down. I can't have multiple versions of Xcode running. If I'm already suffering with one version of Xcode, Xcode is just, you know, a recipe for disaster. So we're turning that one off. All right, so this is called layout. Again, what I want to do is I want to target universal app, which I want to do for sure. And where it says deployment target, I'm at iOS 11. Because that might have been a problem with my iPhone 8 orientation. I'm just leaving it alone. I mean, probably not. I'm just leaving it as iOS 11. Who cares? That's what I'm targeting here. Main, portrait, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go with my main storyboard again. And just like you did when you were creating your calculator app, which is what you should do. So shortcuts, how would you do it? Would you pull in 4 labels? What would you do? How would you design if you were going to pull this thing? I need 4 labels. What would you do? 1 label and copy, right? You can copy paste, but so I'm going to kind of go in here and go label, right? I'm going to drag in a label in here into my storyboard, right? Oh yeah, I'm chugging along, guys. Chugging along. Means like that means bad, by the way. People who don't know. If you know me, when I say chugging along, it means like we're not moving fast at all. And I'm going to go to my text here, and I'm going to change this to upper left. Right, upper left. That's the label name. Just to make it a little bit different and to give myself a bit more of a challenge. I'm not even challenged enough, I guess. Is make it 20. Let's make it really big so we can see it. This is for you guys so you can see it on my screen, by the way. And yep, I'm also going to center the label so it's centered in my little thing here, right? I'm going to pull it up to the top left corner where it's supposed to be, right? And just so we can see these labels, because they're really, really hard to see, I'm going to change the background of these things as well. So my background right now is no background, right? So if I click in here, right, I can pull a different background. Let's make it so that is, I don't know, teal, right? There we go, something different. And remember, notice what I'm not doing is I'm not copying it yet, right? I'm making all my changes first. This is like, you know, 101, and I'm changing my color. That's the foreground color. I'm gonna change my color to what I want, which is gonna be snow, right? And just to make it even stand out a little bit more in my font, I forgot to do this. Let's make it bold instead of regular. Bold font, there it is, stands out a little more. So you guys should be able to see that now with the UL. And that's 20 point. Okay, so now that I've got my design for my app, I've got my font size, my background color, my foreground color. I've done some styling. Now I want to copy it. I don't want to copy it afterwards and do all that work again 4 times, right? So I'm going to option drag, right? Option drag across, which basically allows me to duplicate my label all the way across. I'm going slow so I can actually do this without making a mistake. Yay. And this would be upper left. This would be upper right. So I'm going to change this to upper right. So you are. Change this. I'm going to drag this one all the way down to the bottom, right? On the bottom of my app here. And we're going to say lower left, just for an orientation perspective. And the same thing goes when I'm going to drag from here to the right, option drag. You can see that the guides all line up, right? And this is lower right. Okay, cool. So I've got my 4 labels, and they look better than just normal labels. At least I think so. Okay. I need constraints. Help me out. What should I do? I want to make these constraints kind of work. What should I do? I could control drag. Well, what I want to try and do first, from a default perspective, the way it looks, my first thing that I would do is go to my editor, first thing, if I was going to try this out. And I might go to resolve auto layout issues if there's a layout issue. So if there's a problem, I would go in here and kind of add my own. Notice if I don't do this, remember we did this last time we were programming, I didn't need layouts and it was fine. Why? Because it tried to take my whatever screen I have. It's not responsive anywhere or adaptive, but it tried to take this and say, meh, all he wants is this one app. We don't need constraints. We don't need no stinking constraints. That's what it said, right? But if I start dragging, now we're going to have constraints and we're going to have to fix them. So a couple things. One, I'm probably going to need some kind of anchor, and that's what I'm doing here by control dragging to the left, right? Leading space to safe area. I want to put that in there for sure, right? I don't want my label to be horizontally centered anymore, right? Okay, now this one. Should I not just do the same thing like this? I'm just like guessing here, right? Trailing space to safe area. Notice it said leading and trailing. Leading means on the left, trailing means on the right, right? Or on the right side of you, right? So I'm going to click this one. So you can see that now it's going to put that little thing here, right? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to say down here, I'm going to just control drag to the left, right? Leading space to safe area, and I'm going to control drag to the right. So I'm going to put some constraints, right? Trailing space to area. I want to do that. Okay, cool. Well, that's good. I've got some information, but I've still got quite a lot of ambiguous problems happening here. If I look at my layout issues, there's 6 of them, and it says my vertical position is ambiguous. Vertical means up and down. In there for up and down. Let's try and do the simple ones, right? The ones on the bottom. Bottom, if I put the control drag down, and it says center vertically in safe area. I don't want that, but I say bottom space to safe area. Look at this, bottom space to safe area. In your case, you might say bottom space to a container, right? And I'll do the same thing down here. I'm just going to just add another constraint here. Space to safe area. There we go. So I've got 6. I still got 6 problems, right? And I'll put these to the top. Let's see if I can do that. So I put these ones to the top. So top space to safe area. That's the top one. And same thing goes for this one. Let's see if I got more problems or less problems. Top space to safe area. All right, so I got a bunch of constraints. There's 6 of them. I'm still getting some stuff, and it says trailing constraint is missing, which may cause overlapping of their views. That means this one. Like if I click on this one here, if I click on the issue, right, it's going to point to the object that has a problem, right? Notice I clicked on this one, and it pointed. This is the same as in previous versions of Xcode. On the PowerPoint here. So it means that, well, I got a problem. What it's looking for is some kind of what's happening on the right-hand side, it's saying, for this particular one. Leading constraints is missing. Well, no, that's something else. Put that layout constraint in there. So I'm going to put some layout constraint in there. I'm going to drag and drop to the other option, the other view here. See, I let go and it says, I want to put this other horizontal spacing in place. So I want to say that, guess what? I have this horizontal spacing. It turns red, right? But I did put a horizontal spacing between the two. I said at least this much room, right? Let's see if I can do the same thing down here. I'm going to kind of control drag from this one all the way to this one. Horizontal spacing. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to control drag from this one all the way to this one. Horizontal spacing or vertical spacing. That's vertical spacing, right? And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to put this one to this one. You might think in your head, hold on a second, right? Shouldn't this be enough? I mean, I've got like a ton of constraints here, but I still got 4 problems. And it tells you what it is. It says width and horizontal position are ambiguous for UR. Width and horizontal position. The width, that means the width of my label, by the way, right? I don't have a thing now. See if I can, if I fix everything, so if I select the whole thing, the view, and if I go back to my editor, first of all, let's see what I get when I run it in my simulator. I got my simulator up here. Yay. And I run it in my simulator. Oh, no, no. No, I don't have my simulator up. It's got the wrong simulator coming up. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Let's try that again. Let's target my iPhone 8, please, not my iPhone 8 Plus. I'm trying to keep to one iPhone, one simulator, so it saves us some time. Let's try that again. Constraints and checks again. I only have 4 problems. This is I have 4 problems. But I put constraints, you know, logically, when you think in your head, you're like, wait a minute, intuitively, that should be enough. I got top and bottom, left and right, between each other, right? You kind of think about intuitively how it should work. It doesn't work like that, guys, right? And this is where people get confused. I'm pointing this out to you, and the reason why I'm not doing what it says in the PowerPoint is so I want you to follow the PowerPoint after this, right? And do what it says. So let's wait till this comes up 100%. It's not happening. And what the heck? Well, hold on a second. Let's try different things here. So my command. All right. Whoa. And got this one. This one's gone. And that one's gone. So I got nothing. I got no orientation now when I did that, right? All right, if I was trying to fix this automagically, remember we talked about this automagic fixing stuff? I go to editor, right? I'm going to go to resolve auto layout issues. There's one that says for selected views that says add missing constraints, and then I can update frames. Let's try add missing constraints, not reset to suggest. Don't try this one. Try this add missing constraints one. I added my missing constraints, and I got one issue where my fixed width constraints may cause clipping, right, with a width of 42, all right? And if I kind of look and see, you can see that, oh man, it's added all kinds of extra constraints for this one, like a ton more, right? That's what it says anyway. I got a width of 42 and a height of 29 here. And I might have a boatload more of constraints down here. That's what I got. Okay, let's see what it did for me now. Did it help me? If I leave that extra problem, if I ignore, I'm going to just, you know, I have it was a great story that my wife keeps telling me, right? Her dad had this old car. I'm telling you a story now, so hopefully it will make you less bored, right? He had this old car, it was an old truck, and he took it to the dealer, and he said, I don't know why, but my engine light turns on. And the dealer says, I don't know why either. Just put a piece of tape on it, right? Put a piece of tape on the light. You don't see the engine light anymore, and it kept going, right? So it didn't fix the problem, But I don't want you to be that kind of programmer, right? If you're the kind of programmer that just puts a piece of tape on the engine light, right? That's bad, right? Don't put a piece of tape on the engine light, guys. Left or so command left now. I still don't have that. So this doesn't work for all orientations. It only works for my own, and only by fixing the constraints that I had. So it does this part, but I'm not quite fixed yet. Okay, now let's see if I can fix any other issues. This is automatically, right? I'm trying to fix things. I'm trying to figure this out, right? I'm going to go resolve auto layout issues. It says, hey, reset to suggested constraints. Let's see what this does if I do that. So I did my own attempt. I tried my own stuff. I worked hard. I control dragged all over the place. I added the missing constraints, and now I'm going to do this one, reset to suggested constraints. All right, what the heck? Look, it just moved it from one side to the other. And look, there's still a couple of problems, right? I still get these auto layout localization issues. Why is that? I'm using a universal app, not an iPhone app. Think about it. So my app is universal, not an iPhone. And if I run this thing again, right? I should see the same exact issues that I had last time. Right, let's see what happens. So run it, pulls it up, and start up here. And if I go command left, oh, hey, look what it did for me. It kind of worked in different orientations now, right? But kind of, right? This is the iPhone 8. It doesn't have a top bar, right? So it's kind of a problem because I'm kind of out of the safe area over here. So these labels here on the top are way too close to this part. And this part down here is way too far away from this part. So it kind of works, right? It kind of worked, but kind of not. But it kind of did what I asked it to. Look, I didn't give any space up here for this stuff. I didn't say, hey, give me a minimum space the same as the minimum space down here. I didn't ask for that. So it didn't give it to me, right? So what about if I want to override, do that? Yeah, let's check that out. So I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go to these ones specifically, the top ones, right? And let's see what I can do. If I go to this one here, the middle one, see that I've got some spacing on the left, 16 points. Notice I said points, not pixels. I got 569 points to the bottom and 259 points to the right. My label width is 42, right? Look, notice that it says 42 here, a fixed width. So if I click fixed width, I want to make my label fixed width of 42, right? And I want to put some space at the top of my label. I don't know what it is yet. I'm going to click away for a second. Let's go down to the bottom. How much space do I have on the bottom of my layout? Let's see what this says. So click on the bottom one, open it up, and it says width of 42. But my bottom has a 20-point lead, right? There's 20 points on the bottom here. And that's why it looks different when I do orientation changes, because the top has 0, right? So I'm going to override this problem, causing another problem, right? And I'm going to definitely click on width here. But now, one thing to do. I can update 2 constraints at once. If I click this and shift-click this one, shift-click this one, there we go. And if I click this, you can see that it's handling both, right? And if I click, I want to say, well, both of them are going to be, instead of 42, let's make it even. Something else, another number. Let's make it 45. Yay! And we're going to add 2 constraints. That's going to make them wider. Problems for me, but I'm trying to override here. That's what I'm trying to do with you guys, right? Same thing for the top. I'm going to add 20 to the top and 45 width. So 20 to the top. So I'm going to go down here like this, choose that little button again. So you can see that that's possible. So I'm going to go 20 for the top. That means I'm changing that one. And a width of 45, right? I want to change that width to 45. Suddenly that kind of changed for me, right? There's also a height. I didn't even touch the height, right? I can also specify a height, minimum height. If I specify minimum height, let's make this minimum height 30. I forgot to add that in. So there's 6 constraints I'm adding at the same time. Let's just do that. Might as well add the height down here too. Let's see if the height changed for here. That should have. Let's see if it happens. Height of 30. Right? No, let's make it height of 30. Exactly what we did the other one. Add 2 constraints. All right, so we got some height changes and some other stuff. Oh man, I'm gonna have to, there's like 9 problems here, right? And a bunch of red marks. Red marks are bad, right? Red marks make me afraid. So I gotta fix this problem. Look, it says heights of 45 and 42. Oh man. Oh man. So I could, for this selected views, I could do this, but I want to do it for all views. That's this part right down here. So I want to reset suggested constraints to fix my problem, which changes this to 45. I do see that there's a bit more of a space up here, right? And I'm going to just press play to see if I can get that simulator doing the basic things that I wanted to do. See what I'm doing? I got a strategy. I got to kind of try and do what I know how to do. If you didn't know how to do constraints, worst case scenario, right? You would try and do it this way. This way is not complete, by the way. Won't work on other layouts. Okay, whoa, wait a minute. I asked for 20 up here. What the heck happened, right? So I'm going to command this way. Nothing. Why? Well, because when I stopped it, and if I click on these ones here, even though it looks like this in the viewport, right? And when I look at this one, I do get 0 again, right? Okay, whoa. I can figure this out. I'm a mathematician. I want to add 20 to the top, right? I want to take 20 away from the bottom, right? Maybe that's the fix. Oh, I'm going to kind of click this one. And instead of 567, I'm going to go 547. That should fix it, right? So I click on both of those ones, click on this one. I'm going to add 20 to the top. This bottom one to 547 to make it even. So I haven't really added anything, right? I've just subtracted. I've added here, but subtracted from here. Let's add those. Add. Oh, man. What the heck? What happened? Right? All right, cool. I added those in there. And you know what? I wanted to check these ones too. Let's see what happens here. Okay, cool. I've got those ones, and I got multiple here. All right, my width, and this is 20, and that's 547. Hey, that worked out. Okay, well, I got these 3 constraint problems. And what are they? If I click on this little button here on the top, it's going to show me my navigator. I'm going to ignore these things for now. But it says there's 8 conflicting constraints. So height of 30 and 50, height of 30 and height of 30. It puts those up. Height of 30 and height of 30. So that's kind of a conflicting constraint. It says first baseline is equal to UR first baseline. That's a conflicting constraint. Because my baseline is I got to update my frames now, right? So let's suppose I just select the items that I want to update on the outliner over here. Here's the outline. You can see that I have constraints for each view. Look, here's a constraint for view. And I also have constraint for the entire container. Constraints here. It's for the container and 1 for each view. So I'm going to kind of highlight these views. And for the selected views, I'm going to go to editor and I'm going to go to resolve auto layout issues. And this time I'm going to select, I want to kind of update my frames, but it's not really allowing me to do that. It says reset to suggested constraints, right? Is that going to mess me up? So I reset to my suggested constraints. And if I look up to the top, oh man, looks wider, but when I go in here and look around again, I still get 0. Now, one thing that did happen was a couple of interesting things happened. This changed and stayed at 547, right? That stayed at 547. Also, when I do an orientation switch, right? Because I've said that the right side is 16, that's kind of weird because my top is 20. That's what I want. I want my top and my right side to be 20. So this is kind of wrong too. I'm trying to figure this out on my own, as you can see. So I want to add 4 here and maybe subtract 4 from here. Let's try that. So I'm going to kind of go here. And maybe is it the same here? 253 and 16? Is it? Is it? Is it? It is, right? 253, but 16 on the left side and 253. So I'm going to take both these ones, 253 and 16, so both the left ones. There they are. I've selected both of them now. 253 and 16. I want to add, make this 20, right? And I have to subtract 4 from this side, right? So 249, right? And add 4 constraints. Okay, cool, cool. I did that part. And I got to fix this side now because I didn't fix the other side. Whoa, what happened to this thing? Look. Oh, that's weird. That's, oh man, what the heck happened? Look at this. It like made it really tall for some reason. Okay, so 16's got to go to 20. Somehow it stayed at 249. That's okay. I'll keep it. Oops. 20. I'll keep it at this 249 stuff. My width went to 49. Wait a minute. It's supposed to be 45. Let's put that back. 45. I want you guys to get the idea of what I'm doing. I know that I'm leading you down a dark road here, right? But I'm doing this for a reason, my peoples, right? I'm doing this because someone has tried this kind of stuff in the past, right? And they're like, wait, what do you mean multiple? I shouldn't have multiple widths. My width should be 45. 2 constraints. Right? And wait a minute. This height doesn't look right. This height looks like it's way higher than 30. Wait. I shouldn't have multiple heights, right? My height shouldn't be 50. My height should be 30, and my width should be 45. That's what I set it at last time, right? So, oh man, that's what I want, right? Why is it showing up that weird number? Okay, this time, you know what? I'm going to update my frame. That's it. I click on this thing. I'm going to go to my editor, and I'm going to resolve my update. Oh, where's my update frames? I can't do that. I don't want to do this because that's what messed me up last time. Now I'm stuck. And this is what people sit there and they go, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. What would you do? Who knows how to fix this problem? Who knows how to fix this problem? You were working. You don't know how to fix it? Come on. You said you know, right? The problem is that what's happening is I'm trying to align things by hand, okay? And I'm trying to figure things out. I've got 7 constraint issues. And if I start looking at this 12 conflicting constraints, the problem that I'm having is I have different views happening. As an iPhone 8, but what happens when I view it as something else? Let's go and view it as some other kind of phone, right? What kind of constraints do I have for this view? Or what kind of problems will I have for this view? And you can see that if I try it, automatically you can see what happens to my constraints. It pushes my stuff. It gives me a preview, right, of what it's going to look like over here ahead of time. It tells me, hey, Tom, something's wrong, right? Because it's showing me that in this view, right, in this layout, 2 of my buttons are off the screen. It tells me ahead of time. It gives me a preview of what's going to happen. That can't work, right? And this is what this orientation stuff happened. Look what it says, vary for traits down here on the bottom. Vary for traits. So when I the reason why this little thing pops up down here is it means that, well, if I want to have, notice that my iPhone view is width is compact and height is, right? That's what my iPhone view is, my 4S, right? But if I kind of target another kind of iPhone, right? I want to target, instead of that one, let's go back to the iPhone 8. And this is where things look a little better, right? Looks like a little better, but I got a bunch of extra stuff here. I got this one. You can see I can press on the constraints. Look, there's like 3 constraints I put in here. Width, right? I got like the width in there a bunch of times. I got some width in here a bunch of times. Once 50. I shouldn't have 50. Height should be 30. So let's get rid of that. So you can go in there and try and delete some stuff too by your hands. I only need one of these widths. I don't want to say these widths should be greater than or equal to 45. It should be equal. This is not greater than equal to 30. It should be equal to 30. That's what I want, right? And if I look at the, if I bring this up, And if I look at this right here on the right, this is my, so I bring this up on the right, you can see that my constraint is 30, right? Here's my first item. It actually names it LL height, right? And it says by default greater than or equal to. I don't want that. I can make it equal. So I can physically change my constraint. So what it looks like over here is different, right? And I can play with my constraints all night long, right? If I really want to. Like my height should be 30, my width should be 45, but my width should definitely not be greater than or equal to 45. I want to get rid of that one. So get rid of that one. What about this one? I'm missing a constraint. It should be my height is 30, right? So can I add a constraint in here for this one? Yeah, I could. I could go to wherever my constraint is. There it is. Pull up my little window. By the way, look at what it shows here on the right-hand side is my frame rectangle. Show my frame rectangle. And you can see that my, oh man, what the heck is this? I want my height to be 30 and add that constraint. And if I do that, I add one constraint, it should appear right here, right? So you can see that there's constraints that can be put on each view, like this one's no good. Let's go on the right-hand side here and get rid of it, right? So I want to get rid of this constraint altogether. There we go. So that kind of equalizes those. Notice that there's less errors now, getting closer. If I start looking at these ones over here, it says that the safe area is equal to 20 as a constant, right? You can see that it says use canvas value. Okay, I can think about that. So that is the value. That's not going to change. My priority, here's something else, high priority, multiplier, right? What this does is it allows you to preset for different screen sizes, like aspect ratios, 4:3 or 16:9, right? Why this is good is especially for doing things with Apple TV and all that kind of stuff. You can specify one of those, right? If you want to, those are presets, right? Okay, so that's what this one does. Let's keep on looking on these ones. 21,000 multiplier. If you can find a machine, go ahead. And as you can see, if I go down here, now this is where I start getting into issues. This is the upper left, this one here, right, is equal to the lower left trailing. Okay, so second item, lower left trailing, it's equal to. That's a problem, right? So that's the relation between my upper left and my lower left is equal to. And would it be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to? You can put that relation in there. We can think about that. Here's the constant. If I really want to put a constant value, I can say that this is the minimum value. And I can say greater than or equal to this constant value, right? So you can see that I can put things in place myself. There's 5 constraints that I got a problem with. Okay. What about if I click on the view? So this is these are individual views, right? Notice this is safe area. Safe area now is the container. That's new, right? And up on the right, you can also see that there is going to be something that looks like this. It's aligned to top UL, right? Aligned to top is the UL. Aligned to leading UL, right? Upper left, lower left. You can see that I've got some of this going. Here's aligned to top. It should produce an okay thing. What about orientation changes? What if I check, I want to preview the orientation change. Oh man, what the heck? Is that what it's going to look like in my orientation change? Let's see, I'm curious, right? We're going to stop recording in a second, guys. I just wanted to get you to try it out with me a couple ways to see what the problem is. So I get a preview here. I ignore, I put a sticker on the engine light, right? I say, I don't want to see that engine light, and wow, that's weird, right? And if I move it around, it looks okay here, but I do this, that looks weird. And that looks different than what I'm seeing over here too. Like it says upper left, should be really long, but actually I'm getting upper right really long. So if I go this way, look, you can see that that's got, why is it doing that? Like, how come, right? Because it's trying to interpret what I want to do, right? And this orientation change, notice it says vary for traits. Well, I can assign different constraints for different orientations as well. Like if I click on this object right here where it says upper left, right? And if I look at this number right here for these things, I can see that my width is now 333. Orientation changed. It changed my width automatically to 333, but I don't want that. My width should be 45. Let's try this out here. My width should be 45 for that, right? I shouldn't change that. And I'm going to go add one constraint, right? And, oh man, what the heck? What happened there? And then here, this thing's got to be the same thing. I'm going to put that width as 45. I don't want to make this width what it is. But if I make a width of 45 and I want 249 to my next one, this should really change, shouldn't it? Right? That's why it's having a problem. It's trying to figure out my calculations, and they're wrong. Okay, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I have numbers, points between different things, right? Different arrows. When I change my width and I don't change the space between my objects, if I adjust my width to 45 and it's supposed to be 333, right? What did I do with all that extra space? Can't go. I got to adjust the other part to it. That's why it's having a problem. It all has to be adjusted so that it understands what I'm looking for. Okay? So you can see that I've got this in there, but it's only for this orientation. If I click on vary for traits, right? And then I want my width to vary for traits, right? It automatically turns this blue color. Width and height actually should vary for traits, right? And you can see that I can, and this is what we're going to get to later on, where I can say, well, I want things to change. And now when I go here and look at my width, I can modify the width instead of it being like this. Let's try and add that back in there. Add one constraint. Okay, didn't do exactly what I want. If I want, what about if I kind of pull it close myself? Can that work? I say, you know what? I want to go to, it looks like 43. Okay, will it work? What does that do? If I just pull it like close myself, like I'm varying for traits, and I'm going to kind of go to 43. I'm going to go exactly where it looks like. There it is. 43. It's not quite 45. And see where it says done varying. I click the button, and that'll be my variation for that particular thing. I want to make a change when I'm in my orientation change for that. Let's go back. Oh man, what the heck happened? Okay, guys and girls, I'm going to stop now. All right, but I want you to understand what's happening here. It's trying to adjust. Even now, okay, if I went back to my editor, clicked on my view, and I went back to my editor, and I went back to resolve auto layout issues, and if say, I don't know, update frames, that would be really bad. If I said reset to suggested constraints, it's the first thing I'm going to do. So those all went away, but that's not where I want this thing, right? I want this to be way at the bottom, right? But now suddenly there's no issues. And if I go to here, and if I change this, it becomes like this, right? Somehow it thinks it knows better what I want than I do, right? And that can't be. So let's stop recording. So from now, what I want you to do for the remainder of class today, okay, is I want you to look at the PowerPoint presentation. There's this part. I want you to fix this part. And I want you to go through the PowerPoint. I want you and a partner to group together. And I'm going to make this new lab. It's going to be lab number 2, orientation, right? And I want you to submit, not this one. I want you to finish this one. But I want you to submit the second one. The second one, or the third one. There's 3 apps that they specify here. There's app number 1, which was the layout, the orientation one. App number 2, which is orientation. App number 3, which is a different one. And it gives you a bunch of buttons and a green layout, okay? I want you to follow the PowerPoint as best you can, okay? And I want you to, I'm gonna go around and help you, and I want you to hand it in with you and your partner. I want you to put it up on GitHub, okay? I'm gonna put a lab up there, so you and somebody else get together and work together, and I want you to hand in your best effort, okay? Your best effort tonight, even if it doesn't work. All night on constraints, nothing else, all right? And I want you to figure it out as best as possible. Actually, one person, before I let you guys go, There was a gentleman that came to me today. It was a true story. He came and said, Tom, I'm doing second careers, right? Anyone ever heard of second careers? It's actually a program we have in Ontario. And what they do is if you've lost your job or if you got laid off or something like that. Cool. And what he said to me was, I need to do a survey with you. Can I do a survey? I said, sure, I'll do a survey with you. And he said, number one skill that as a programmer, by the way, I'm paraphrasing for if he's watching. As a programmer, is there a number one skill that you recommend that all programmers should have? And I said, yeah, it's independent learning. Because if you don't know how to do that in the job, so you're in the job first time and a new version of iOS came out or a new device. And you know what? You didn't get that. You didn't learn that at school. Oh man, I'm stuck. I can't do it. Manager, I can't do it. Is that what you're going to say? No, you're going to figure it out. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. So lab 2 is layout. I've given you some hints on the PowerPoint. I could go with it, go through it with you, but that would be like watching paint peel off the walls, right? It'd be really boring. It's more interactive if you do it with a partner. So you and somebody else, don't do this alone. When you hand it in the lab, I want your partner's name and your name on the lab inside the submission details. I'll tell you how to do that later. Has to be up on GitHub, and I want a zip file of your entire project, okay? Okay, so I'm going to stop recording right now. When we come back, I'm going to put up that lab. All right, thank you.